On the radio. What?
Here's my good, if somewhat easily distracted friend, V.Gomez from Jammin' 95.7, talking about how she knew it was time to move on from a 7-year relationship and how that could be scary. Put the phone down, concentrate on what we're doing.
Just promoting the mix. I'm done. Promise.
Really? While you're in here, you're promoting something on a different station? Nice. Real nice.
I'm on a different station right now. I have to promote it. It's part of what I have to do.
So good that you're so attentive to your job that you're in here now. So what would you say is the indicator that you're ready to move on from your ex? You're going through this now, apparently?
I am. And what
I think a good indicator that you're ready to move on from your ex is when you're like texting instead of paying attention to them during a conversation.
Oh my goodness gracious. Look, AD, you don't get to be rude and like needy at the same time. So like, let's pick.
I'm not rude or needy. You're the one that asked to do the podcast and came in here and started texting.
My dad told me one time, he goes, look, honey, you can't be sensitive and tough. All right. You pick one or the other, because he says I'm both.
I think you can be both.
I was going through a sensitive time. Like everything hurt my feelings in that moment. But
well, I think like you can't dish it out if you're not willing to take it.
I think that's what
you can't be bitchy to somebody and then when they give it back to you be like, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Exactly. That's true.
So that's probably what your father was alluding to.
He's a Cuban crazy man.
So how do you know you're ready to move on from a relationship?
I didn't
You have
know.
experience with this that you would like to share.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know. I thought I was doing fine. I really was. I was like, okay, we're broken up. It's been a while. It's been a year and a half.
And you'd been together with him how long?
We were together for 7 years.
Oh, that's a long time.
It's a while. And we were broken up for, we've been broken up about a year and a half. And I'm thinking I'm doing good, right? I'm like, not crying every day or anything, but I'm okay. Okay. He wasn't meant to be. I love him, respect him. I appreciate the time we had. I'm cool. I didn't realize until I recently met a guy that I feel like could be a boyfriend, could be my next boyfriend. It just something about being around him and feeling like I'm in a relationship again really kind of made me have this like, I don't want to say panic attack.
Because you're having feelings for somebody new, you realize it's a final nail in the coffin of the last thing. And you before with the ex, like, you'd been broken up for a year, but you still had in the back of your mind, you never know. But if you move on.
You know what? It was never a feeling of like, I want to get back with him. And it's not him, because he's actually really great. What it was is that he was so great and everything like that, and it just didn't work. And so I think when we tried. And so it's like
7 years is longer than like many marriages last.
Right.
Like that's, it's a long time.
I feel like sometimes a good girl and a good guy just kind of, it just doesn't work. And you can't always, there's not always going to be a reason of, you can't, it's not for all the obvious reasons. When we broke up, everyone's like, oh, did he cheat? No. Oh, was he abusive? No. I mean, that seems to be the reason why most people break up.
He's so great, it must be some ginormous problem, as opposed to just kind of, well, here's the thing. Like, you got together when you were how old?
23.
Yeah. And you know what you don't know when you're 23? You don't know who the hell you are.
No.
And if you don't know who the hell you are, it's almost unfair to ask someone to commit to you, because if you don't know what it takes to make you happy and you can't kind of spell it out for them in some way, and if you're not sure of it yourself, it's almost unfair to be with someone and, hey, you figure it out. Well, this is like asking someone to figure out how to make you happy when you don't know yourself. It's almost a lost cause from the get-go, which is why, like, for a young relationship to work before people sort of know themselves is very difficult. It's not impossible, but it's like catching lightning in a bottle.
That's a very interesting subject, because I saw a clip on The View where they were talking about getting married, before you're actually 30 or in your 30s, and how...
Let me just stop you right there.
The View. Oh, gosh. Why did I say that?
When you're sort of like going through life and looking for reliable sources of information on important topics that can shape your life for the rest of it. The you
smart.
should not be your first stopping point.
I didn't say it was my first stopping point. I just said
That's who I want to get my life advice from. The star of Sister Act 2.
Listen, she killed it in Ghost.
I've never seen Ghost.
What? Oh my goodness. Okay. The fact is like, there's a lot of people who get married, even 18, 19, 20 or early 20s or whatnot, and it just doesn't work forever. And I think maybe we are realizing that we know ourselves a bit more, in our 30s.
My best friend, like my best friend in the world, married the girl that he's been with since they were, I think she was 13 and he was 15.
Wow.
And they're still together. They have a beautiful kid and they know each other better than anybody else. And they kind of have grown up together. But I think what's interesting is they both really care about each other and they're both very attentive to what each other is going through and what makes them happy. And like, that's a really rare quality. And it's really rare, I think, for people to develop that despite having been together since your teenage years. And so like, but that's the exception, not the rule.
Well, I have 7 sisters and actually one of them, don't
7?
Yeah, a lot. So one of them,
Do you have any brothers?
Yeah, 3. And so.
Wait. You're one of 10?
Yeah. It's a lot. I'm Mexican and Cuban. What do you think? We just sit around and don't. I'm the only one that apparently that doesn't have kids around here. Yeah.
I wasn't aware that there was a Mexican/Cuban stereotype.
I'm just saying Latinos in general have a lot of kids, right?
Is it a Catholic thing?
I will say that my family is now telling me to go get pregnant by anybody.
By anybody?
I shouldn't have said that.
Well, you know what?
Kinda.
If that's the advice you're getting from your family, then Whoopi Goldberg is a step up.
Oh my God. Wow. They just don't
Go get pregnant by anybody.
They don't want me to be super old and like not have kids. That's what they're afraid of. And I'm like, what? I can't, you can't.
It's very interesting.
Well, the way they see it is like if you get pregnant by whoever and then it doesn't work, then you already have your kids and then you can find someone else.
How? Like, what do your mom and dad do?
First of all, this is not my dad, and if he hears this, he's going to be a little upset. So my dad is like, don't ever have kids. So what do? They're both in real estate.
They're both in real estate?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just the financial burden of a child is a hefty one. The financial burden of 10, like I think it costs around $750,000 to raise a kid times 10. I mean, like, look, this is a sliding scale and, but like assuming this kid needs all the things that a kid needs, is going to have the average number of medical disasters that require the average expense of medical treatment. And assuming this kid goes through the same amount of clothes and shoes and cereal and milk and all that sort of stuff till they get to 18 and maybe they go to college. It's over that period of however many years that kid is depending on you. That's a lot. I just can't even imagine how you provide for 10 children.
I think the world has just really changed. I mean, who has more than 4 now? I mean, 4, you're like, you're an overachiever if you have 4 children these days.
I think 2, maybe 3 is a sensible number.
Yeah.
Like I see people walking down the street with 3 kids.
Yeah.
Like one parent, because you can't have both parents around at all times.
No.
Like I saw a dad walking down the street with 3 kids, and he had 2 kids holding their hands, and the other one was sort of running around. And he was looking around, and he had like lost sight of the kid a couple times. And he was like, "Hey, get back over here! What are you doing?" And I was like, 3 kids is more than you can physically hold on to, and therefore more than 2 kids. You got 2 hands, 2 kids. That to me seems like any more than that is you're rolling the dice on the third one.
But it's very new school. I mean, I personally want 2. I do. I want 2 because I feel like I don't want just 1. And 3 seems like a little bit. I would do with 3 if I have the financial resources, and then 3 is cool, I guess. But if it's more than that,
if it's more than you can hold, like you got 2 hands, you got 2 kids, then the other ones will look out for that bus. What bus? Splat, and there you go. You got no way of physically restraining them because you're busy holding 2 other children.
The world is just so different now. Everyone's just starting later with families, and things are just so different. I mean, I feel like people used to just get pregnant, early in life, and so that that is your life, and then you have 1 and then you have 2. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
Think people just kind of started everything a lot earlier?
I think people are starting later and later. Like, there will be, according to some recent stats, there will be a problem in terms of there being enough members of the workforce in America. Apparently, we're looking at a population problem because folks aren't breeding the way they used to, because everybody's Look, America's in this really weird place now where we're all working. We're all working 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs just to kind of like keep it together. And that's making us go, I can't afford a kid. I also don't have time to have a kid. I'm not going to have a kid. And this has been going on since the 90s. That's when the sort of drop off in people breeding the way they had been up to that point where, you have 10 kids because you got a lot of work to do on the farm in the olden days. Like, you have 10 kids because you want your own baseball team, whatever. But like now there's not that sort of like need to raise a large family to keep the homestead going, which is where this weird instinctive thing comes from. People are being a lot more selective about having children, and experts are looking at it going like, the workforce is going to be completely underserved in the not too distant future. All the people that are in the workforce now are aging out and retiring, and they're not going to be going to work every single day. So there's going to be this giant surplus of jobs, which is an interesting way to look at it, because it's like, hey, jobs for everyone. But on the other hand, the economy is going to take a massive hit because there's not enough people cranking out. So you know who's having a huge population problem at the moment?
Who?
Russia. And well, Russia's a miserable, horrible, awful, cold place to be with less human rights than we have and terrible weather and, like... So
they just figured they'd just stop reproducing and bring people into that?
Well, I mean, less people want to breed, and there's a population problem in Russia. And you know what Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, did to try and encourage Russians to breed?
What?
Booked Boys to Men. Not even joking. He brought boys to... No, not even kidding.
This is the best story ever.
It's a pretty good one. Vladimir Putin, booked boys... he himself, Putin...
Have you seen Boys to Men live?
No.
Okay.
But I mean, you can't front on the way those guys can sing.
No, they're incredible. I saw them in Vegas. I was just kind of wondering where your mind was. So he booked them to do what show?
Well, I think he brought them over for like a Valentine's Day show, thinking that the idea that Boys to Men were coming to the Kremlin would get people in a reproducing mood.
Oh, so they sang "I'll Make Love to You,"
or who knows, any number of Boys to Men songs
that are sad. I'm bending knees. A lot of them are about breakups.
Say goodbye to yesterdays. Isn't that about like your homie that got shot or something?
Yeah. So you got to be careful, Boys.
Well, Russians can relate to that too.
Oh.
So, anyways,
that's really funny.
All right. So your situation, you broke up with your boyfriend of 7 years. A year and a half ago. Now you find someone that you like and you're like, oh, this could be a real thing. That means it's definitely over with other guy.
It's funny because, I don't know what triggered all of these, but I feel like the other night I just kind of had I don't know if it was an anxiety attack or something. Like I just got overwhelmed with oh my gosh, and I just started crying about my ex, and I kind of was like, am I over him, or am I over this, or am I finally facing it because I actually am starting to like someone else? And I think it just got really real when I started to kind of,
I think long-term relationships, you don't just go done. It's never what it is you're kind of held together by all these threads, and the longer it goes and the further apart you get, the last of the threads start to break, and they get fewer and further between until it's done. But something that's together for 7 years, you're not just going to be able to put that away completely overnight. But meeting this new guy, I mean, hey, if your parents are urging you to just, go quick, procreate with literally anyone at all.
I'm not listening to them because as much as I love my family, I know they probably have good intentions.
There's enough of you already.
The reason why I'm not listening to them is because this is going to be my responsibility. No one's gonna, handle oh, let me go get pregnant. And then, anyone else is going to handle this. Is my life.
If you have 10, if you're one of 10 siblings, you probably won't have a hard time finding a babysitter when you need one.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't really like to ask people to go out of their way.
And do they all have kids?
Yeah.
Can you remember the names of your nieces and nephews?
I
or
can.
Or are you just like you and you?
AD, I have a niece that's older than me, and I have a nephew that's older than me.
Really?
Yeah, it's strange. It's very strange. Because
That is not the norm.
That's not the norm. It's been an interesting life. It's been an interesting family and a really great dynamic. I wouldn't trade it. But it's very different. But I mean, it kind of goes into, my mother was born in Mexico. My dad was born in Cuba. They have different, ways of looking at having kids. And that's another thing, too.
So what's the Mexican way versus the Cuban way, according to your parents?
Well, what I mean is, it just culturally, Mexico definitely, I don't know if they still have so many kids, but, back then, they definitely had a lot more kids.
So your mom's from Mexico, and she's all about having a bunch of kids. Mm-hmm. And your father's Cuban and not so much about having the kids.
Well, he's very big on money. He's very big on saving money, making money, He's just like, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. So he thinks the same logical way that you do. Hey, the world
You got 10 kids, you're darn right a dollar saved is a dollar earned.
The world is,
you ever managed to save it? If you have ever managed to save $1 when you have 10 kids, that's like a major accomplishment. Like, I could understand why your dad would be like, if your mom's all about, I want to have like 10 kids.
But my mom's not ignorant at all. Like, she's got, properties, and I mean, they're smart people. They're very smart people.
I'm not doubting that, but I think that's kind of a natural Cro-Magnon thing where a lot of the time, as a guy, the first thing you think is, how can I pay for this? Like, I have my dog, Millhouse. I I would love to get another.
Love your dog.
Of course, everybody loves Millhouse. Millhouse is the best.
I haven't seen him in like 2 years. But well, you know, I love him.
But Millhouse is the greatest, and I know Millhouse would love it if I got another puppy. Mm-hmm. For him to play with. Like, he would have such a blast. Mm-hmm. But I look at that and go, oh, I don't know. I worry about, being able to look after Millhouse properly. Like, I just had to get his teeth cleaned. That's a major thing. That was like $1,000. Yeah. Like, he needs shots. He needs grooming. When I go away, he's got to stay at the, the kennel. He's got to be boarded. It's a lot. I don't have anybody here that I trust to look after him.
Yeah.
And so, like, times all that by 2, I never want to get in a situation where I have to go, I can't, because I got 2, I can't take perfect care of one of them.
This is such an interesting conversation, because really the way you talk about your dog is like, that's your child. That is your baby.
If that's how I feel about my dog, your dad's wanting to, he might love every one of his kids, but also, like, I think a lot of the time, and I don't know if women are hardwired this way too. I know women are obviously, extraordinarily protective and maternal and, care for their children because, there's that, interestingly enough, there's that drug, that chemical that your brain produces. It's called oxytocin. It's what's responsible for a mother's love. It's a genetic imperative that you will love that child like a bond. Mm-hmm. When you pet a dog, the dog produces oxytocin and you produce oxytocin.
Really?
So yeah. So the feeling of love that you have for your dog is very similar to the feeling of love that a mother has for her child. Interestingly enough, that wears off in a few years with a mom and kid,
because they talk back and they're horrible.
No. The chemical stops being produced in the same way. Yes, they talk back and they're horrible, but it's it's a chemical thing. The chemical occurrence of oxytocin in your brain when you hang out with your dog and just scratch him behind the ears, and he's like, "Oh, that's awesome." Mm-hmm. That doesn't go away. That exists forever. So, like, the bond between a dog and a human is the same as a newborn and its mother in a lot of ways.
That's really interesting. Dogs are amazing. They really are. I mean, cat people, I kind of get it, but oh God, dogs are just always so excited to see you, and they're always just so happy.
I think a dog is probably the best proof that we have of the existence of God. Like, people are looking for proof of God, and like, well, all right, here is this thing that's been put on earth, and all it wants to do is love you, protect you, be your best friend, and make you happy. Always. And if you don't take that as a sign that something out there is looking out for you, I don't know. If that's not a sign, I don't know what is.
I completely agree. I think I think dogs are from God for sure. I don't know who spiders are from, but I know God created dogs for sure.
I think that's a good place to end. We didn't solve your relationship problems, but we know that God created dogs.
Yep. And we're questionable about spiders.
And if you're dyslexic, dog is God.